Nobody could disagree that BBC comedy is a lefty echo chamber. A survey last year found that of all the BBC comedians who openly state a political position, 99% were left-wing and 1% were Jeff Norcott. Such a lack of diversity and inclusion should have lefties in uproar, as it results in a narrower pool of talent, more prejudice, lack of representation, and it alienates people. Which is exactly what's happening with BBC comedy. Viewing figures have plummeted for keystone comedy shows such as Live at the Apollo. They're down 95% since its heyday, and the narrow talent pool limits BBC satire to Nish Kumar bleating F Boris Johnson, and the prejudice is plain to see. Tories, Brexit voters, white van man and other euphemisms for white working class people are routinely mocked. Their position on the underbelly of society is reinforced rather than challenged by BBC comedy. So you'd think woke liberals would be delighted when the BBC announced the tiniest, most tokenistic step towards representing right-of-centre people, who actually seem to form a substantial chunk of the population if election results are anything to go by, when it commissioned a one-off Radio 4 pilot called Unsafe Space, showcasing some of the country's heterodox comedians, such as Andrew Doyle, George Zack, Mary Bourke, Nick Dixon, and myself. And it's worth mentioning that I'm probably the only right-wing comedian on the list. Greek comedian George Zack is an out-and-out lefty. The show features genuine diversity of opinion. A substandard comedy blog called Chortle described the pilot as anti-woke, despite nobody at the BBC or the production company saying this, but it triggered a shitstorm of liberals screaming on Twitter. Thousands of tweets furiously offended that the show is racist, misogynist, transphobic, homophobic, punches down, isn't funny, is illegal and must be cancelled. Bear in mind that not only have these offended people not listened to the show, we haven't actually written it yet. In the film Minority Report, a special precognition police unit apprehends offenders before they've had a chance to commit the crime. Wokeists' sense of offendedness is now so heightened that they can now also predict what they're going to be offended by before it happens, and cancel comedy shows before they've even been written, never mind broadcast. Anyway, here are a few of the hundreds of deranged lefty tweets about the show. So-called anti-woke or right-wing comedy almost invariably punches down. Listen, anti-woke comedy isn't punching down. Wokeists have the cultural power, as evidenced by the overwhelming preponderance of left-wing comedians on the BBC. Satirising woke culture, pointing out its hypocrisies, overreaches and logical inconsistencies isn't punching down, it's speaking truth to power, and it's exactly what comedians should be doing. Lots of people dug up the corpse of Bernard Manning as an example of a racist right-wing comedian. It shows how baseless woke fears are that they have to go back 50 years to find an example of a racist right-wing comedian. And Bernard Manning isn't even right-wing, he was a lifelong Labour voter. One of your own, you woke fucks. Jeremy Corbyn. Loads of lefties started frothing at the mouth because we must be racist and we'll definitely be saying the N-word. Look, I don't know what these woke fannies think comedy clubs in London are like in 2021, but trust me, no comedian is going on stage and being racist. People generally wouldn't like it, especially at a Radio 4 recording. And no comedian is dropping the N-word on stage. Well, no white comedian anyway. Apart from anything else, Ofcom rules forbid it, so you don't need to worry about that, you fannies. It's British, so chances are 90% of the content is going to be transphobic. Because of course Britain is such a hotbed of transphobia, as opposed to other countries such as Saudi Arabia. Is the show transphobic? I mean, we haven't written it yet, so we can't be sure, but maybe your prejudices might be wrong on this one. And of course, we're literal Nazis. Games producer Robin Clark, who's unsurprisingly fat and miserable looking, says, "You have to wonder what the generation of BBC radio comics who underwent the trauma of fighting in World War II would make of the corporation reduced to airing the grievances of snivelling little saloon bar Nazis." Well, we certainly know how a fat nerd who fought in Call of Duty feels about it. I can't help but feel that the barrier to entry for being considered a Nazi has come down slightly since 1939. Also, if the comedians on the show are Nazis, shouldn't we be encouraged in our artistic endeavours? Before he became a genocidal maniac, Hitler painted watercolours. If he'd been encouraged in his artistic pursuits instead of being cancelled for being a Nazi, we could have perhaps avoided a lot of unpleasantness. And of course, we're causing literal violence. It starts off by being normalised on TV and ends with violence and harassment in real life. I know how you feel. I wanted it the other way round too, so we start with the violence and harassment in real life and then normalise it on TV, but the producers wouldn't let me. I mean, to be honest, I'm not totally sure how we'll normalise it on TV, given that it's a radio show. And hundreds of people banged on about us only having one joke, and it's about identifying as an attack helicopter. I have no idea what they're on about. I've never seen a comedian say that they identify as an attack helicopter. Ironic that we never mention attack helicopters, but wokeists have accused us of it hundreds of times. We don't have one joke, but they do just have one baseless, nonsensical criticism. Some of my fellow comedians had a go too, because comedy's just one big happy family where we're supportive of each other when we get opportunities such as a BBC pilot. In 30 minutes, The Archers, but first Leo Kearse has some spicy takes on why women are idiots. I don't have any spicy takes on why women are idiots. I genuinely don't know. I always assumed it was something to do with hormones. Great choice of comic for the project. I left a compilation show with him in it at Ed Fringe in 2015 where he shouted down a female audience member about her presumed baggy fanny. My exit encouraged others, so he kicked off at me. Really funny all round, thumbs up. What she doesn't mention is that she was actually kicked out after racially assaulting a bathroom attendant, and she was dressed as Hitler, and she's that woman who put a cat in a bin. I can also make things up. This stinky wee streak of pish Alex Keeley had a go too. Take a shot every time you hear, I identify as an attack helicopter. 13 minutes later, you're admitted to hospital with alcohol poisoning. The worst thing about this is that it's totally hack. Dozens of other people had already tweeted the same lazy comment. Alex was educated at one of the poshest schools in Britain, Eton, which charges £50,000 a year, and greased his path to Oxford University, so he's clearly well placed to criticise others for privilege. Let's have a look at his comedy and see if an expensive education has paid off.
Also, the one thing that's worse, I hate that thing that Remainers sometimes go where they go like, oh, the British people didn't vote to be poorer. I'm like, yeah, they did. Yeah, it was almost the explicit binary of the referendum. Like, one side was like, leave, take back control. And the other side was like, well, this would be an economic disaster. And the British people were like, two of those, yes, please. Right? Like, that's all it was, right? Brexit was just a question where the British people were asked, do you hate immigrants more than you love money, right? And that was how Britain narrowly voted. It was just a weird moment for Britain as well, because for about 300 years under the British Empire, Britain could both make huge amounts of money and hate foreigners simultaneously.
Explicit binary of the referendum. I think he means choice, but why use one word when you can lump several words together in a grammatically incoherent mess to try and make yourself sound smarter?
Yeah, it was almost the explicit binary of the referendum.
Explicit binary of the referendum. I mean, I really don't understand why the Remain message didn't resonate with working class voters. And loads of wokeists tweeted that they're going to try and cancel the pilot by booking up tickets and not going, or booking tickets and heckling, or booing, or sitting in silence, or blowing air horns because the jokes that haven't been written yet are so offensive that they need to be silenced. When do normal people ever do this to woke people? Nobody buys tickets to woke comedy and then sits in silence. Okay, well maybe that's a bad example, but if they do, it's not part of a malicious plot to try and silence them. And most people wait until they've heard something before deciding it's offended them. Honestly, woke people are the new old people. In the 80s, there were these blue-rinse grannies and vicars' wives trying to get controversial and seditious art banned, and back then the liberals were actually liberal and tried to stop the censorship. Anyway, please like and subscribe. I'm going to do more fun videos soon. I know this was a bit of a serious one, and if you like my videos, please consider becoming a patron. For the price of a cup of coffee a month, you can enable me to buy a cup of coffee a month, is basically how it works. So yeah, there's a link below. But thanks for listening. I've been Leo Kersky. Bye. Bye. Bye, bye, bye.